Hello everyone and welcome to the first video on the SuperCoach Pro channel. My name is Pratik and I'd like to thank you all for joining me on this journey into the new world of SuperCoach EPL. Now I'll preface this by saying that I'm by no means a SuperCoach or fantasy expert, but I have played FPL for a few years now, which is a very popular fantasy sports game based on the Premier League. So hopefully I can transfer some of those skills across to the newly introduced SuperCoach EPL format. I tend to play the game with a pretty stats-based approach, and in this channel I'll share some key stats and data on a weekly basis to help you find the best picks for SuperCoach EPL throughout the season. Now, I'm currently ranked around 4.5k in SuperCoach AFL, as you can see here, which is not great at all by any means, but given that I was ranked around 63k after round 5, I'm pretty happy with my climb since. This is only my third year playing SuperCoach AFL seriously, after mainly only playing Fantasy Premier League beforehand, but I absolutely love the SuperCoach format and it's easily become my favourite across any fantasy sports game. The limited trades and the emphasis on finding value across the season really does add a whole different element when picking a team compared to other fantasy games. Now, FPL on the other hand, I've been playing seriously for almost a decade. There's a website available that shows your rank history all time, and they've currently got me ranked at 15k all time and 4k over the last 7 years or so. Now, 15k or even 4k for that matter is definitely nothing to write home about. However, given that there are over 10 million players that play FPL every year, I'll take being ranked 15,000. Alright, enough about me, let's actually talk some SuperCoach. This is obviously the first season of SuperCoach EPL, so we're all in the same boat here of learning how the game will work and what the best strategy could be. The first thing to look at here is how the scoring will work for this game. I've also added FPL scoring system on the right to compare it with for those who are familiar with FPL. So as we can see here, for a goal scored, you'll get 14 points for a goalkeeper, 12 points for a defender, 10 for a midfielder, and 8 for a forward. Now, immediately you can see that this is more than you would get on FPL, where you would get 10 for a goalie, 6 for a defender, 5 for a midfielder, and 4 for a forward. Now, alternatively, an own goal in SuperCoach will cost you 6 points, and an own goal in FPL, right at the bottom here, you can see is minus 2 points. So you can see that not only will you get rewarded more in SuperCoach, but you'll also get punished more. Now, the interesting thing here is in SuperCoach scoring are these little 0.5 and 0.2 scoring metrics that you can see. So you can see that certain things such as key passes, accurate crosses, successful dribbles, tackles, aerial tackles won, clearances, block shots, interceptions, all of these will give you a small number of points where you need to accumulate enough for it to be rounded up to the nearest whole number. Now they've shown an example here where a minimum of three clearances must be recorded by a player for 1 point to be rewarded. So 3 clearances means 3 times 0.2 equals 0.6, rounded up to 1 point that you'll get for each 3 clearances that your player will get. So it might not seem like much, but trust me, these things add up over the course of a game and especially over the course of a season. So I like that SuperCoach has introduced this because it involves a whole new quota of players that you normally otherwise wouldn't think of. So it's not just the goal scorers and the players that are attacking that you'll consider now. You can actually consider defensive midfielders. You can consider players that do a lot for a team but might not be the ones that are scoring all the time. Alright, that's enough about the scoring side of things. Let's take a look at the actual SuperCoach website now and start having a look at some of the prices and positions given to these players. Okay, so we've got the website up here now, so let's have a quick look at the players and the prices. But before we do that, let's have a look at the formations. So you've got the classic Brexit 4-4-2 here. You've got a 2-5-3, which is pretty cool. Means that you only have to play 2 defenders every week. So you can go pretty attacking with this one. You've got the 3 at the back formations, other 4 at the backs, 5 at the backs as well. So yeah, it looks like you can play any combination of players really. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, which is pretty cool to see. Okay, so let's have a look at the goalkeepers here then. So they've got Kelleher priced as the highest goalkeeper. He only played 10 games last year, but he was, of course, the backup to Alisson at Liverpool. So he's joined Brentford this year to be the number one keeper. So you expect his number of games to go up, but his average to probably go down, given he's playing for a worse defense. They've got other, goalkeepers from good teams here, good defenses. So these are all expected. David Raya being this low is a little bit surprising, given he arguably plays for the best defense in the Premier League in Arsenal. So he might be a little bit of value. Okay, now Petrovic is a pick that I'm personally pretty interested in because he's recently joined Bournemouth from Chelsea. So he's going to be their number one goalkeeper. And if you have a look at last year, their number one goalkeeper was Kepa here, who got 180 points at an average of around 6 points a game. So Kepa's now joined Arsenal to be their backup to David Raya. So replacing Kepa will be Petrovic. So you can expect him to perform pretty well as long as Bournemouth perform the same as last year, of course, defensively. You can expect Petrovic to put up decent numbers for his price point. So yeah, that's one I'm definitely interested in. Okay, so let's have a look at defenders. Now they've got Daniel Munoz priced as the highest priced defender, which kind of makes sense given that he plays for a decent defense in Crystal Palace and he's probably the most attacking defender in the league. He basically plays as a winger most games. So if you've seen any Crystal Palace games, you know that Daniel Munoz is always in the box. He's always trying to get an assist, get a goal. So yeah, I can understand why he got so many points last year. They've got Gabriel here as the third highest priced. You can see he only played 28 games last year, so if he played a full season or almost a full season like these guys, he might have challenged them for number of points. He's also very, very attacking, but in a slightly different way. He's a centre-back and he gets targeted a lot by Arsenal during every single corner, free kick, and he's very good at what he does, which is putting the ball in the back of the net. So Gabriel's another good pick. Going down, we'll just have a quick look for now. So Frimpong, again, he's very, very attacking, but something to keep in mind is that he might not be starting every single game from the start of the season. Liverpool did play a friendly recently where it felt like they played a pretty strong starting 11 kind of team and Frimpong wasn't in the starting 11. So something to keep in mind. If you do get any indication going into the season that he is getting the starting spot, he's definitely going to be a good pick. Let's have a look at midfielders first. Now, Cole Palmer feels like the clear standout here, given that there's no Salah, no Saka, none of these other players that could be midfielders in these spots. So Palmer feels like the only premium option that you can select, really. He's a captaincy choice almost every week. He plays almost 90 minutes at every game. He's on penalties. He's on free kicks. He's the talisman of Chelsea. So you can't really go wrong with Cole Palmer. Now, going down, we've got Eze as another decent option. Can't really go wrong with any of these top choices. Iwobi being that pricey is very surprising. Must have had a great season last year. Played every game, which, fair play. But yeah, looks like they've got some pretty interesting players here as options, given that I think they've given a lot of the positions for midfielders to forwards. So, okay. Now, one name that I did see earlier while I was having a quick look is Rodri. Now, where's Rodri? He's very, very cheap from what I remember. Well, okay, here we go. Rodri, 3.7 million. So Rodri is priced that cheap because he only played 3 games last year. He got an knee injury very early in the season. It ruled him out for basically the entire season. So Rodri's a bit of a cheat code because you expect him to play every game for Man City, for one of the title contenders, and you expect him to do a lot for the team. He might not get a lot of goals and assists, but he does do a lot of the dirty work, and as we looked at the scoring before, those points should add up. So Rodri should be a great pick going into the season. I'd argue he should probably be much higher in ownership percentage. So yeah, we'll see if that increases going into the season. Okay, so let's spend some time on the forwards then, given that this is where all the big players seem to be. So Salah is appropriately the highest priced player in the game. He got the most points, he's got the highest average, and he played every single game. This guy's just a machine. So 32% of you agree, 32% of you have him in your team at the moment. That might climb. I expect it will going into the new season. He's a permanent captain option every single week, so if you're ever in doubt, you know you can always just put it on him. Now, just below Salah, we've got Mbeumo, Isak, Haaland, Cunha, and Saka. All great players in their own right. But I do expect Cunha and Mbeumo's points to drop off a little going into the new season, given that they've both now joined Manchester United, who already has a penalty-taking talisman in Bruno Fernandes. And Mbeumo and Cunha were really important players in their previous teams, where they also took the penalties, so I expect them to not have those same avenue to points anymore and drop off a little bit. Isak is in transfer rumours at the moment. He is asking to leave Newcastle, presumably for Liverpool, so we'll see how that goes. If he stays at Newcastle, I think he'll be a very, very good pick going into the new season. But if he does go to Liverpool, again, he won't be on penalties anymore, and I expect his output to drop off a little bit, given the higher quality of teammates that he will have. So the points may be shared around a little bit more. Haaland is a great pick, and I don't really know how he's priced less than Isak and Mbeumo, but he seems like almost too good to be true, really. He didn't probably have the best season last year based on his own standards that he set for himself, but I expect him to have a bit of a bounce back year, and I think Haaland's a great pick going into the new year. Alright, let's have a look at some of the cheaper options here then. We've got Watkins here at 8 mil. We've got Wirtz here at 8 mil as well. We've got Rodgers as well at 7.5 mil. Now, all three of these I think are great options. They tend to play, well, Wirtz hasn't played for Liverpool yet, but I do expect he'll play almost every game. Watkins and Rodgers play almost every game for Aston Villa as long as they're fit. And I think all three will do well going into the new season. All right, Gyökeres is another big name who's come in as the starting striker, you'd think, for Arsenal. 7.5 mil is a very, very good price, I think. There are rumours that he will take penalties from Saka. He has a very, very good penalty record. So we'll see who ends up being the first choice penalty taker for Arsenal. But if it is Gyökeres, then I think he'll be at a price that is too good to refuse. And if he starts the season well, then I think that ownership percentage will climb very, very high very quickly. Ekitike, who's just joined Liverpool in a pretty big signing, priced at a very cheap 6.5 million. Now, again, as I said earlier, I do expect their points to be shared across the team. But if Ekitike goes off to a flyer, I can see him getting very popular very quickly. But yeah, that seems to be most of the forwards there worth mentioning, at least initially. Like I said, I'll do another detailed video later on where I'll look at a lot more players in depth. Now, another thing I wanted to have a quick look at is the number of trades available for the season. So if we have a quick look at the help section here, and then trades, and trade boosts. Okay, so as you can see here, you can make unlimited trades before your team's entered, of course, but then once the season has started, you'll be able to trade up to a maximum of 2 players for each game week, up to a total of 44 trades for the whole season. So you can only make 1 or 2 trades at once, and you will get 44 trades for the whole season. Now, for up to 6 game weeks during the season, you can activate a trade boost, which will allow you to do a 3rd trade for that week. So this might seem like a lot of trades, but you do have to keep in mind that there are 38 weeks across the whole season. So the fact that there's 44 trades that you're limited to across 38 weeks, you definitely have to be careful with your trades every single week. Alright, I could ramble on about these players forever, but I'll save it for another video. I'm thinking of doing a separate deep dive anyway on each position before the season starts, so I'll discuss some more players and stats during those. I've also created a couple of leagues open for anyone to join if you're interested. You can find the league code below, and I'll also put it in the description. All my socials are also linked below if you'd like to follow me for more updates. I also just wanted to give a special shout out to my boy Manan for helping me out with the graphics for my channel. His links are also below if anyone's interested in some graphic design work. If you've made it this far, I appreciate all of you and thank you for checking out my first video. I look forward to seeing you all for my next one. Let's gear up for a huge first season of SuperCoach EPL. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.